It sure is nice to come home at the end of a long day and enjoy a podcast. But you know what makes the experience that much better? Relaxing with a few puffs of smoke from my McQueen pipe. At McQueenPipes.com, I was able to find the perfect smoking pipe to suit my nerdy, yet dignified sensibilities. I especially love that each pipe is designed and handcrafted by a true artisan, and that all of their pipes are inspired by fantasy books and movies like The Lord of the Rings. Being a bit of a hobbit myself, my pipe is called the Barrel Rider, but they've also got pipes for wizards, rangers, dragon riders, or even goblins. If pipe tobacco isn't your thing, no worries. McQueen Pipes has got you covered with attachments for vaping or even cannabis. Head on over to McQueenPipes.com and use the code BIOGRAPHERS at checkout to receive 15% off of your entire order. Go ahead. Treat your nerdy heart to something you'll cherish and enjoy your podcast listening experience in style with a McQueen pipe. That's Mac like mac and cheese and Queen like the band. McQueenPipes.com and use the code BIOGRAPHERS at checkout for a 15% discount on your whole order. Cheers, everyone, and happy podcasting.
I do hope you can see me today from where you are.
Ich bin ein Dealer.
If I'm generally anything, I guess I'm generally miserable. This modern world of science and invention is of particular interest to women.
The people, I would say, there is no patent. Would you patent the sun?
I regard myself as a soldier, though a soldier of peace.
Welcome to the Biographers.
On my phone, I have like a running list of every time that either somebody has suggested a person to me or somebody that I've just thought of and gone, that would be a neat person to do, and I just have a list in my phone of all these people that I'm going to be.
Yeah, I've got one in my wallet notebook of just like all these different people.
Yeah, so
I can't write notes on my phone because then I just get distracted. So I have to use an actual pen and paper. Have you ever done that? I think it's way better.
No, it depends on what I'm doing. So it's my day-to-day lists of things that I want to get done. That's always pen and paper. So that I like to physically be able to put a check mark. I have to go and like, oh yeah, I finished that thing that I was wanting to do or whatever. So I always have those. But when it comes to things that I need to be keeping track of in the long term, that almost definitely has to go in my phone because I'll lose it otherwise. I just can't figure out where I put it or whatever.
That's why I have this wallet that has the notebook in it. Like, it's my favorite thing. It just has like a what do they call it? Like just like an adventure journal sort of sized notebook and a really thin pen and like all my cards and everything like that. And it's the best thing that I own. It keeps
I've seen you use it many
in
times.
track.
That thing has seen better days too.
It has.
It's well loved.
Yeah, I have to get like a new one every year because the company that makes them fairly shoddily, but like the product is so good that it's just like it's kind of worth buying.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to the Biographers. This is an episode of Office Hours, so if you've listened to the show in the past, you kind of know what we do here. It's a little more off the cuff. We have some set things that we're going to go through, a couple of corrections, questions we asked ourselves in the past, or things that we found more information on. I've got some stuff from the past few episodes. Akiva's got some stuff he's going to go through related to Leonardo da Vinci, but this is not necessarily a set episode on a specific person. So like in the past, we've gone through Leonardo da Vinci. We're going to be going through Franz Liszt as our next series. But today we're just going to be going through some random stuff.
Just hanging out. Yeah.
Just chatting, and hopefully you enjoy the content here. Initially we were going to call this Brain Break because that's what I feel like it is. Mm-hmm. It's just sort of like just relax for a second. We can chat about whatever. But Office Hours is an apt name, I think.
Yes, I agree. And as more people continue to give us corrections and notes, it will seem much more like Office Hours.
That is true, which, again, for anybody that is curious out there, we've tried to plug this at the end of every single one of our episodes, but if you do listen through any of our series and you have questions, or if you have corrections, or just like, hey, that was interesting when you went through that, I also heard something, shoot us an email. That's just going to be thebiographerspodcast@gmail.com. We'll try our best to answer any questions that we can. We've also mentioned a few folks in the past that have just emailed us saying, hey, this is an interesting person that you might want to consider doing in the future. So let us know.
Absolutely.
Well, cool, man. Do you want to get going with some questions and corrections first? Or I haven't really even talked to you about how it's been going. I saw you like 4 days ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's a whole lot we need to catch up on.
No.
We've talked before recording. We talked about our weekends and what we were doing. So I don't think there's a lot more to explore.
Yeah, let's get into it.
But you did say that you're hungover because you were hanging out with some friends.
Yeah. So Shalena's derby team all comes over, or we all pick somebody to host a hangout that has a different theme. Like, one time we did like an art themed hangout where everybody did painting. We did a movie night. Ours was a sleepover where everybody slept over at the house, and then we made PowerPoints about ourselves.
Interesting.
So, like, it would be like, and it didn't have to be.
So it's like Smarty Pants, kind of.
Yeah, it almost exactly like Smarty Pants from Dropout, where we just did PowerPoints either about ourselves or something that we thought was interesting. One person did an entire PowerPoint on the video game Creatures 3.
Never even heard of it.
It's just like some weird proto like Club Penguin situation where it was just like aliens that you could like breed and like create new pet aliens, and just I don't know.
It feels like Monster Rancher.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Kind of
like that. But I would want to say it's like fairly early 2000s based on what the graphics were, and they went in like into the detail of like how to get specific monsters and stuff like that, and like what the lore of that was. Mine was I didn't want to do one about myself. So what I did was I made a template for how to make a PowerPoint about yourself, and then I just used myself as an example. So I'd be like, first you'll just start off with like a very normal, non-embarrassing story, like the one time that Akiva went to space camp and so, and then he ended up, having a bloody nose and wiping it on somebody else's towel, and everybody hated him afterwards.
Did you actually get to go to space camp?
Oh, yes. So,
you also,
I was one
I'm
of
going to call you out on it. You're saying, every other word. This has been a point of debate, everybody. Not even really debate. This has been a point of both he and I do it. So I can't sit here and say
do it far worse.
that I'm, not guilty of this. But the does not make good radio.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Space camp, though.
Yes, space camp. If you were a child in the early 2000s, it's very likely that your parents divorced from 2000, like when you were anywhere from 8 to 12. I was one of those kids. And like many of those kids, during the divorce, my parents decided the best thing to do was to put me in a summer camp. So we went to 2 different camps. One was Camp David, classic Jewish summer camp in New Jersey. And the other one was Space Camp, which was in California up in the mountains.
Okay.
First night that I'm there, first of all, I fucking love space as a kid. Like, I love space so much. I was such a nerd. Astronaut ice cream was my favorite thing on the planet.
I never liked it.
Really? It was the best. You'd go to the museum, and then you go to the gift shop, and you just, like, beg your mom for astronaut ice cream.
I tried it once and didn't love it, so I just never begged again.
Yeah. There's a dopamine hit that comes with the gift store at a museum as a kid that I've never been able to find that high again in my life.
Oh, see, I completely disagree with you because I feel like...
What about the geodes and the dinosaurs?
Always thought geodes and rocks were a waste of time, first of all. I was not a rock kid. I still don't understand to this day. If we walk past a rock store, I'm like, who is buying these rocks?
I am.
Not me.
I'm buying these rocks.
I don't understand it. But secondly, I learned very quickly that all of the toys in gift shops are just bad toys. They're like crappily made toys and they're way overpriced.
Yes.
So instead I wanted to just like go to Toys R Us and get something worthwhile.
Oh, my mom would never take me to Toys R Us. In fact, I had like a crisis when I was like 16 that my mom never let me get Legos because...
Oh, that's crimes against children.
I got Duplos. I got fucking Duplos, dude.
That is, I will say, I mean... One of the greatest things my parents did for me was indulge in my Lego obsession.
Yeah.
They would get me Legos, and holy moly, I would devour those Legos.
Yeah, Caleb also was allowed to have Legos, and like Lord of the Rings Legos he had ever since. I remember I would go over to his house, and there'd just be an army of orcs and elves and like multiple Frodos, multiple Gandalfs, and I was just like so... At this point, I was already late into high school, so it was too late, but I was just so jealous of the childhood that I imagined he had. But anyway, I was probably a freshman, maybe a sophomore in high school when I had this crisis, so a little too old to be complaining that my mom won't take me to Toys R Us. But I still did it anyways, and like I just realized, I was like, Mom, you never let me have Legos. She was like, yeah, I would step on them, and we tried it once, and it just wasn't. And I was like, you didn't let me have Legos. She's like, honey, it's okay. I mean, you didn't get. And I was like, you didn't let me have Legos. And she was like, okay, get in the car. We're going to Toys R Us. And at like 14 or 15, she drives me to Toys R Us. I get like a walker from like Star Wars or something like that, and I'm building the Legos, and I finish it, and I was like, it's too little, too late, Mom.
Dude,
she was like,
it's
I'm
never
sorry,
too little,
son.
too late. I still, you know this about me. I'm still obsessed with Legos. If you look behind me, there's the set of Seinfeld Lego that I have. Over
I love
there
that one so much.
is the Japanese Zen garden, and then right behind me is the treehouse.
The treehouse is awesome.
It's super awesome. Yeah, I got this one. I was waiting for it because to me, I looked at it and I was like, it's really cool, but it's too expensive. And then it was like,
You got the Taj Mahal too.
and then I forgot, and I got the Taj Mahal over there too. Yeah, so I'm still obsessed with Legos.
I did get one Lego thing, but my parents were really sold on the fact that I was a gifted kid, so they wouldn't let me just get like basic Legos. They're like, it has to be something intelligent. So I had to build the Empire State Building, and it was all white, like all of the and it was cool, but it was like,
That's also, I would say they missed it because also, and I'm forgetting about this one as well, there's the new Batmobile that I have up there too.
So jealous.
I have way too many Legos.
Kayla bought Barad-dûr. I was like, dude,
that one looks really, really
it's
cool.
like $450 too.
Dude, if I had the space, I would want to do the Titanic because there's the full scale Titanic. It's like $900, but I've just nowhere to put it. It makes no sense.
Max Miller from Tasting History did the Titanic Lego set.
It's so cool.
Which, Max, we're going to be reaching out to you. So if you are listening to this, hello.
Hello.
But this isn't the Lego podcast. This is the Biographers, and I'll tell a little biography about my divorce. So, my parents.
It's like, you're not divorced.
So, at Space Camp, first night that I was there, it was very, very arid climate up in the mountains. And I remember I was just very anxious. Like, my parents had just given me like some webcams and being like, we can webcam each other. And I was like, this sucks. And I had very stressful dreams that night. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I had a bloody nose. And I didn't have anything around me. I was in this bunk bed at Space Camp. We weren't supposed to leave our bunks at night. And I just grabbed a towel and I staunched the blood from the bloody nose. And then I walked into the bathroom and I looked at my towel and I was like, that's kind of weird. I wonder if this is the one from the Space Camp. And then I tried to go back to the bunk that I was in and I realized the bed that I was laying on had no sheets.
Oh, no.
And it was just duffel bags on it.
Oh, no.
And then I was like, I made my bed before I went to bed. And then I finally found my actual bedroom with my backpack and stuff. And I concluded that was somebody else's bunk bed that I walked myself into, woke up, had a bloody nose, wiped my blood on their towel. And then the morning, I remember some kid is screaming bloody murder as they wake up. They look at the towel and they go, ah! And everybody rushes out and they're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And they're like, somebody bled on my towel. There's blood all over my towel. And I was like, I don't know why. I could have, no one would have known. No one would have known. I could have gotten away with it. But instead I was like, that's me. And they were like, you freak.
You're an honest person. That's why.
Yeah.
Own up to your mistakes. It's like Jerry Seinfeld has this joke he had back in the 90s, and he talks about how that's the sign of being a bigger person. So when you're a teenager, you go to somebody's house, you break a dish or you flood the toilet, you immediately come out and like, hey, or as a teenager, you get like, oh, that didn't happen. You walk away. But as an adult, you come back and you're like, hey, I did this. What can I do? Can I pay for the repair?
Yeah.
So it's a sign of growing up, in my opinion,
Yeah. But
I
could have saved myself some social points there.
I was going to ask you, because you and I both read Seth Rogen's book.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end, he talks about how it's like a thing amongst Jewish people that all of the Jewish kids go to what he refers to as Jew camp.
Yeah. Yeah. Or divorce camp or whatever.
And I was like, man, is that I didn't know if that was a thing, because I know there are movies like Wet Hot American Summer where, I don't know if you've ever seen Wet Hot American Summer. It's hilarious. We should watch it sometime.
Okay.
But it's written by Michael Showalter. Mm-hmm. And I'm 99% sure Michael Showalter is Jewish. Mm-hmm. And the whole thing, I remember watching this movie and just being like, man, how do these people have these memories of summer camp? Because the most I ever did was like a week in Christian kid camp. And it just wasn't the same.
I imagine that would not hit the same way.
It was at like a college campus that wasn't being used for the summer. Dude. So we would stay in the dorms and then like meet at the football field. And that was like kind of it. It was fun at the time, but looking back on it, it's just not the same as like a couple month-long summer camp where you're like canoeing and stuff like that. That sounded great.
Camp David was I mean, there's no way that a Christian summer camp could compare, because it was a hot, muggy, like New Jersey forest that we were all in, and like these dingy cabins, and there was like bugs everywhere, and the girls would scream. Like my sister screamed because she was at the summer camp too, because there was a bat, and like her screams were so sonically piercing that she like killed this bat.
Oh my gosh.
Or practically did.
Right.
Very like just like stoner camp counselors. I had one who was very like flamboyantly gay with multiple piercings all over his body that I thought was very interesting, because that was like, I'd never seen that. I was at the time, I was fully Orthodox. There was like, God damn it. Okay.
He gets very mad when I do this to him as well, and it's funny to me.
I can't stand it. It was great. It was fantastic. It's not nearly as religious as you would think it was. I understand that it's all Jewish people going, but there's practically nothing besides like Shabbat, like doing dinners on Fridays, that made it notably religious. It was just mainly all of these people had parents that were getting divorced, so they decided to go to summer camp.
And that, I mean, obviously not all Jewish people are like this, but that kind of feels like a lot of Jewish people to me, that it was like, you're all Jewish, but it's sort of like this sort of like underlying thing
Because
that you are, but not in this overt way.
It's more of, you just can't assume how devout a Jewish person is.
Sure.
In the same way that like a Christian person might kind of check another Christian person for not being devout enough. Jewish people don't generally do that. Like
that's cool.
There's
to
only
me.
a very, very small population of Jewish people who will criticize other Jews for not being Jewish enough.
And they're the very, very Jewish ones that are like always walking around with yarmulkes on and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, and even the ones who did do that, like myself, like no electricity on Fridays, fully kosher diet. There was never any time where we spoke ill of Jews who didn't practice like that. Like, and I'm sure that there are exceptions for people who are listening, but my experience, I just didn't really see that in my community.
Now, I will say it is very funny outside looking in, the loopholes that it seems like very Orthodox Jews will create for themselves to get around certain laws of religion.
You know what a blech is?
No. That's a fun word, though.
It's a fun word. A blech is an oven, so you're not allowed to kindle fire on the Sabbath. But you can have a specialized oven built that will stay at a low, like, germ disinfecting temperature for 24 hours, and you can turn it on Friday afternoon, and then it will stay on for the entirety of the time, and you had not kindled the fire on the Sabbath. Or, like, you could have, like, you can't suggest, like, if you're very Orthodox, you can't turn on your lights, right? Because for some reason, I don't know why, but they conflate electricity with kindling a fire. I don't get it. You can't do that. But if you have like a goyim friend, a non-Jew friend come by.
Is that what a goyim is?
Yeah. Goyim just means non-Jew. A lot of people think it's something very offensive.
So I'm a goyim.
Yeah.
Okay, fun.
Yeah, or a goy, you know. People.
I'm a boy, but thank you.
A goy. No.
That does sound like a they-them pronoun. I'm like, I'm a goy.
Pronouns are goy, goyim. That is what I'm gonna have you put on your. You're gonna have to wear that whenever I like take you around my Jewish friends. That way they like understand why you understand Seinfeld references, but you don't know what Shabbat is.
You're gonna make me wear a name tag. It's like the
Non-Jew.
friendly Holocaust.
Yeah.
I am not a Jew.
And after I say this, I'm gonna finish the sentence with saying, goyim is not an offensive thing. It can be used offensively, just like any other word on the planet, but it doesn't. A lot of people think that it has like a negative connotation. Like if a Jewish person's calling you like a goyim, they're like, "Oh my gosh!" It just means, it literally translates to non-Jew.
It's like, I mean, basically, it sounds like you're saying Gentile.
Yes, that's exactly
Honestly.
what it means. I don't know where I was going with that.
What were we? We were talking about because we're the loopholes that are created.
Oh, yeah, but you can have your non-Jewish friend turn on the lights for you, but you can't suggest to your non-Jewish friend to turn on the lights for you. They can just happen to do it. So you could say something like, "It's so dark in here.
And then
I just
they go and turn on the
wish
light. It's
there
okay.
was some light. It's cold. You know,
Hey, friend,
there's
you
a
know what I
draft.
love is when the lights are turned on.
You can't. No, that's too direct.
That's
It's
too direct?
It's too direct. You could say something like, "I can't read this book right now."
That's funny to me. That's really fun. So the one that I've always thought was really, really funny was...
I love the convoluted stuff about Judaism. It really does crack me up.
So I know that many buildings in like Williamsburg, Brooklyn, around the New York area, they consider if you go into an elevator and push the button, that's work. Can't do that. So what they've done is they have a switch that they'll turn on before the Sabbath so that it just goes level by level by level by level, constantly up and down, constantly up and down. So it does take a lot longer, but you don't actually have to push any buttons. So you can, the elevator happens to have showed up here. Yeah. I can get in, and if
can't
it happens
drive, but
to
you
take
can
me
go
to
on the bus.
Yeah, that's very, very funny to me. That it's because to me, I just go like, if I'm being perfectly honest, I just go, really? You think God's going to be looking down and be going, good job, guys.
I know.
You did it.
I know. It cracks me up so much.
It's like, what? No, I don't think he's going to care.
Another one that cracks me up too. Wow, I feel like I'm just dissing my whole culture here. But it really just genuinely makes me laugh. It's not even like a criticism. Milk with meat. So you're not supposed to have milk with meat because it's...
The Milchig plates. I know about this. I watch Curb Your Enthusiasm.
You gotta stop, man. You gotta stop.
It's true. There's a whole thing where he's with this super Orthodox Jewish family, because Larry David is obviously not very practicing or anything. He doesn't really care. But there's this whole thing where this woman makes this big deal about the Milchig plates. And he's like, the what? And she goes, if they touch, then you have to take the plates and bury them out in the yard.
That is not true.
That's what was in the show.
That is so not true. I've never met an Orthodox person in my entire life bury their plates.
If that's
happens.
Hilarious. That's what he said. If it happens.
Seen people. No, I know, but even if it happens, that's not. People don't do that.
You bury them and then take them out, and that purifies them, is what she said. It could have been bullshit for the show. I don't know.
No, I have seen some who are so Orthodox that they do keep separate kitchens so that it's easy not to mix the two. But
he's mad because he said
God. I completely lost my train of thought. Hang on.
Separate kitchens because it's easier.
The thing with the meat and milk is, I understand the concept, right? Beef and milk seems disrespectful because you're taking the meat from the child and the milk from the mother. That's the idea. It's considered disrespectful against life, right?
Okay.
You know, we're the shepherds of the earth. We're not supposed to be just constantly consuming things. In fact, eating a low meat diet is sometimes encouraged in very Orthodox communities. The one that I never got was you can't have milk with chicken. Chickens don't make milk. Why can't you have buttermilk, you know, like fried chicken with
that's been marinated in buttermilk.
Marinated in buttermilk. And for about the first 18 years of my life, that was like my biggest caveat with it. And I remember I went to my rabbi in Colorado Springs at CSU. His name is Rabbi Yerachmiel Gorlick, and he looks like he's from Crown Heights, but he's actually Australian.
I've never heard of an Australian Jewish person.
There's actually a huge community post-World War II. A lot of them ended up in Australia.
The more you know.
And he'd be like, why are you talking about not eating chicken with milk? You can absolutely have that. And I was like, my entire life I've not been allowed to have chicken and milk. What are you talking about? And he's like, who told you that you can't do that? And
I'm trying to imagine a person with an Australian accent say, oy vey. Like, oh, oy vey.
Literally, that's exactly. He literally talks like this. And I was in a Jewish fraternity in CSU, and people really loved the fact that I could do a rabbi accent because it was everybody's favorite. My Australian accent was far better at the time because I had
honestly.
Lots of exposure.
Australian is hard to do as well.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's just like the root beer of British accents.
It's
like a barbecued British accent.
It honestly, I hate to say this, don't get mad Australians, but it feels like the English accent went to a trailer park. And then out came the Australian accent from the end of that.
What happened.
I know. And don't get mad at us because now I think it's a fun accent.
Oh, and I love the Australians way more than I love the British. So y'all got my love.
I can't say that because my wife is first generation American and her parents are from Wales.
Yeah,
which is
that's
UK.
Fine. That's fine. But the Welsh don't really like the British either.
Well. I mean, yes and no. It's a complicated situation, like many of these things are. But
Nobody on that
is,
island likes the British.
the English, they're all British.
That's what I mean.
The English are the specific ones, which, by the way, I learned recently that for a long time it was referred to, and this gets very Game of Thronesian, it was referred to as the Four Kingdoms.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting? Because it was Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales.
That's
so
cool.
Kind of an interesting little thing.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I'm
pretty sure that the name of this episode is going to be the Milchig plates.
Leonardo and the Milchig plates.
Oh yeah, we did say that it was going to be something about like revelations of Leonardo
the
or
stolen
something like
Mona
that.
Lisa and the Milchig plates.
Anyway, we
Chicken
can
and
figure.
Trafe.
Yeah, we can figure that one out later. Well, let's get into some actual, corrections and all that good stuff, rather than just continuing to talk about funny Judaisms. That's a fun way to say that. I don't know. I don't want to say Jewisms because that just sounds mean.
That does sound. It
doesn't
sounds
sound
charged.
good. Yeah, it's exactly. It sounds like I'm angry, and I'm not. I'm just saying that it's isms of the Jewish people. So Judaisms, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyways. So questions, corrections, all that good stuff. And then I'm going to give you the mic to get into some of the fun stuff you have about Da Vinci. Cool?
Yeah, go for it.
So first, little corrections / whatever we want to call them, questions that we asked ourselves. This isn't really one of them. This is more just a thing that I found out, and it blew my mind. And Akiva, I've already told this one to you, so you know it. But for everybody out there, this one I thought was amazing. So in Jack Daniel episode 1, I talked about the Scotch-Irish emigration of 1641 and how it was an amazing and happy coincidence that the Scotch-Irish happened to settle in the mountains of Appalachia, which provided them the exact resources and conditions needed to make their whiskey. But to add just a little bit more color, I recently learned an amazing fact, which was about 335 million years ago. There was the landmass that was known as Pangaea. It was before all the continents split. Most people know what Pangaea is, so I probably don't have to explain it. But about 200 million years ago, Pangaea began to split apart, and over the course of millions of years, the continents as we know them today began to form. When North America began to split away, a big mountain range was severed. In the United States, this mountain range would eventually become known as the Appalachian Mountains. The remainder of that mountain range still exists to this day in the United Kingdom and is known as the Scottish Highlands.
That's so cool. Shout out to Hank Green for that information, by the way. I love his videos.
Is that Vsauce guy?
I thought that was Hank Green.
No, that was Vsauce guy.
Oh, was it Vsauce? Okay.
That was where I learned it from, is that he offhandedly mentioned it, and it was this like amazing light bulb that went off in my head. So in essence, the Scottish Highlands and the Appalachian Mountains are the same mountain range. So when the Scotch-Irish left their beloved Highlands, they unknowingly settled into the exact same mountain range in the United States.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
It wasn't just a happy accident that they settled into a similar area to make their whiskey. They were literally settling into the exact same mountain range that they used to call home. So anyways, I just thought this was amazing because it wasn't a story that was just a few centuries in the making. This was literally a story that was several 100 million years in the making.
So wild.
Dude, it was like a nerdgasm when I learned that. I was just like, oh my god, I need to tell somebody.
I remember, didn't you call me or something like that? Or was it during a recording session? I can't remember.
It was before a recording session, but it was like I had just learned it that morning because I was scrolling through TikTok and Vsauce popped up and he was like, so let me tell you, in his crazy Vsauce way that he does it that I can't do.
Hey, Michael, Vsauce here, or something like that.
Yeah,
he says it backwards.
Michael Vsauce here, and I just want to tell him. Anyway, I'm not trying to make fun of him. I really like him. He's definitely gave me some amazing pieces of education in the past. But this was one of those that oh man, I was like bubbling when I learned this because it just, I don't know. Sometimes when history fits together in these types of ways, how can you not just be completely floored and like it's like hearing magic.
It's meant to be. It feels meant to be.
It really does. It's like, I don't necessarily believe in fate. I don't really know. I don't have a super hard opinion on it. But when I hear that type of stuff, it's like, dude, it feels like it's way bigger than a coincidence. And it's just amazing to hear that kind of stuff. So pretty darn cool. Well, next one here. In episode 2 of Leonardo da Vinci, Akiva taught me that da Vinci inadvertently discovered the law of equal and opposite reaction. Now, I thought this was one of the laws of thermodynamics, but I was only partly correct. In truth, Da Vinci had discovered the law of conservation of energy. And the law of conservation of energy is closely linked to the first law of thermodynamics, but it is different. In case anyone is curious, the first law of thermodynamics states that when energy passes into or out of a system as heat or matter, the system's internal energy changes in accordance with the law of conservation of energy.
I see.
So it's like linked together, but not the same. Mm-hmm. So for any science nerds out there that heard that and went, hang on. Yeah, we gotcha.
Okay.
And I'm not even going to pretend that I fully understand it, but I'm trying.
To add an addendum to this, another sort of semi-correction about that conversation was previous to Leonardo da Vinci, there was a theory about constant movement wanting to stay constant called impetus. Da Vinci expounded on this to figure out these sort of laws of equal and opposite reaction.
Okay.
But the concept of impetus was somewhat understood at his time, just not expounded upon.
Okay, interesting. All right, well, number 3 on our little list here. So in episode 2 of Leonardo da Vinci, we weren't quite sure how to pronounce ducat. That's D-U-C-A-T. Now, I thought it was what I just said, which was ducat. But Akiva, you were actually much closer.
Really?
It is, in fact, pronounced ducat.
Okay.
So it's a ducat. I don't know.
Which makes sense because ducal, like a ducal court would be the court of a duke.
Yeah. So I had no idea. I've always seen it and been like, ducat. But it is ducat. Now, that's really just for all the pronunciation police out there, because I know you're out there, and I know that you get very uppity about these types of things, and I still don't understand why you do what you do. But hey, everybody, there you go. There's your pronunciation police correction. Which I will also say, okay, this one has been really frustrating me because on TikTok, people have been calling me like ultra white and stuff like that for how I say Mabel Dodge Luhan.
Here we go.
Okay, I have to clear this up because
you do. At this point, it's gotten out.
It's gotten out of control. Where people are like, excuse me. It's first of all, it's spelled with a J. It's Lujan, and it's also Luhan. Okay, you need to be like Han Solo. Okay, I get it. And I'm also going to fully concede that I'm sure that the vast majority of people with the last name Luhan pronounce it Luhan. Okay, I totally get you. And there was one person who even said, my maiden name is Luhan, so let me tell you. Gotcha. Not trying to say that you're wrong in that regard. But when it comes to Mabel Dodge Luhan, it is pronounced Luhan. I even thought it was called Luhan at first. And then I went to the Taos Pueblo where her husband, Tony Luhan, lived. And the story is kind of complicated, okay? So just to clear this up for everybody, Tony did in fact spell his last name Lujan, and Mabel changed it to Luhan for the sake of ease when she was writing it to people, whoever she was writing to, they would see it and they would phonetically know how to pronounce it and say, Luhan or Luhan. Now, what ended up happening over the years was Tony adopted the spelling of Mabel's last name. So he changed his last name from Luj to Luhan. And then additionally, there was a separate family living in the Taos Pueblo who also had the last name of Luhan. Mm-hmm. So to separate it and to make sure it was known there are these two different families, Tony and now all of his ancestors not only spell their last name Luhan, they also pronounce it Luhan.
We cover this in Mabel Dodge, but people are still commenting. I don't get it.
I know, but it's they see a TikTok video and that's what they say. So just wanted to clear that up. And I learned that, by the way, when I met Tony Luhan's great-grandnephew, this guy named Red Sunrise. And I was like, I thought this was how it was. And he goes, no. And he just basically told me the entire story that I just told you. And he was like, so yeah, my family has been calling it Luhan for quite a while now. And we're the Luhans, and there's also the Luhans, but we're the Luhans. And I was
Daniel literally talked to the descendants in Taos, in Mabel Dodge's house. I think he would know.
Not even Mabel's house, in the Taos Pueblo, which is estimated to be about 1,000 years old, if not longer, and it is still inhabited by the native peoples of the Tewa. And I did learn somebody did correct me on that pronunciation. I was saying Tiwa, and they were like Tewa. So
gotcha.
I'm not a pronunciation expert here, so I will accept corrections when people give them to me. But this is one of those examples where I was like, I'm sorry, everybody, you're all wrong. You gotta cut me some slack on this. I know I'm white, but I'm not that white. So just wanted to clear that one up really quickly.
That's funny.
So number 4 here, in episode 2 again of Leonardo da Vinci, I was trying to remember the name of the rap group that Lin-Manuel Miranda used to be in. We were like going back and forth about it.
Yeah.
We couldn't quite remember. It was called Freestyle Love Supreme.
That sounds terrible.
It does sound terrible, but there was a whole documentary that was made about them, and they were called Freestyle Love Supreme. And I can't remember who else was in it, but I want to say it was one of the original cast members in Hamilton was also in that group with him, and then I think there was somebody else who was like a music producer. Anyways, they all went on to go do cool things. So
That's funny.
there you go. Last one on my list here before I'll give it over to you, Akiva, to where you can go into your fun little heisty stories and whatnot. This was in Leonardo da Vinci Part 7. Akiva talked about the drawing of water, I should say, that was by Da Vinci, known as the Deluge drawings. And I said it reminded me of a Japanese painting of waves, but I couldn't remember the name of the painting. So in case anyone is curious, the Japanese painting I was thinking about was called The Great Wave of Kanagawa. And I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, Kanagawa's right.
And it was by an artist named Katsushika. I'm so sorry. Katsushika Hokusai. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced, and it was painted in 1831. So just wanted to throw that out there in case anybody
You've definitely seen it. Anybody who is listening, you've definitely seen this painting.
People get it tattooed all the time.
I have a bag of it that I picked up in Harajuku when I was in Japan. And it was just like, here, American tourist, do you want this picture? And I was like, I do.
I like that you just you throw in the hard Jew in that pronunciation. Harajuku.
Harajuku.
So yeah, that's the only ones that I have. Again, if anybody has gone through really any of the series that we've done so far, whether it be Jack Daniel, Leonardo da Vinci, or as far back as Mabel, Ian Fleming, whatever, if you find something that you go, hey, actually, this is an addition to this, or I have a question about this, or a correction, again, shoot us an email at thebiographerspodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Well, you ready to go, man? Ready to tell us your tale? And by the way, this kind of came about because Akiva was trying really, really hard. And maybe you're already going to say something like this.
Yeah, I think we're going to address about the same thing, but go ahead.
Okay. He was trying really hard to not get too, I think the way you kind of put it was like self-indulgent or repetitive when it came to writing for Leonardo da Vinci. So there was some debate whether or not he was going to do 7 parts to the series on Leonardo or 8 parts. And he ended up condensing it down into 7 and kind of said, but there are some like fascinating later details that kind of happen relating to his painting. So he's like, maybe we can talk about it in office hours. So that's kind of what we're going to be going through here.
Yeah, so based on Daniel's reaction to my abrupt conclusion of the analysis of the painting The Mona Lisa, I'd guess a few of you out there were hoping I'd dive into the mystery of Leonardo's final painting, discussing the History Channel occult stories or wild Freudian stabs at Da Vinci's psyche. As a person who deeply values the wonder of reality, it feels wrong to give stuff like that any more airtime. But there was one other story that stuck out to me about Leonardo's last painting, the Mona Lisa. It wasn't about some scandal surrounding Lisa Giocondo or some Da Vinci Code conspiracy, but instead a true story that was likely responsible for plastering the Mona Lisa across every mural, funny t-shirt, and coffee shop chalkboard. Unfortunately, it wasn't Da Vinci's sense of perspective or understanding of anatomy that would put his portrait into the world's collective consciousness, but the tale of a mild-mannered custodian who would commit the largest heist of the 20th century.
Dun, dun, dun.
Vincenzo Perugia was born in 1881 in a small town on the mountainsides of Italy. Growing up as a lover of fine art, Perugia had spent his 20s working in art museums as a custodian and caretaker. He would spend his days cleaning paintings and lovingly building frames whenever requested. When he turned 27, Perugia would find himself working at the greatest collection of fine art in the world, the Louvre in Paris. While the fluff of the story is highly suspect, it's said that Vincenzo had a particular love for a painting that, unless you were part of the artistic elite, was overlooked by the general public at the time. We're, of course, talking about the Mona Lisa. It was said that every day Vincenzo would pack up his lunch and spend it looking at the portrait lovingly, irritated that the French, who learned how to paint from Renaissance Italy, would put Lisa in a rarely visited corner of the museum.
Oh.
Vincenzo thought that the Mona Lisa deserved to be placed among the greatest paintings of its time, around the works of masters like Michelangelo, Raphael, and Donatello. He believed that the Mona Lisa should be returned to Italy. In 1911, he would try to bring home a painting that is genuinely estimated by professionals to be priceless. So talking about that sort of priceless price point, some have estimated that the painting would be worth around $970 million, which is about twice as much as Salvador Dali, which sold for $450 million a couple of years ago.
Really? Didn't know that.
But a lot of other people just think that the price would be so high that if you were to legally have equity on this painting, no one could continually own the painting for an extended period of time just because of the taxes on it.
Sure.
So it's considered literally to be priceless, quite literally.
Crazy.
So Sunday nights tended to be the most popular time for people to look at the art. So let's try that again. Sunday nights tend to be the most popular time for people to look at the art. So Vincenzo came in with the rest of the crowd wearing workers' aprons, but he wouldn't arrive home until the next day. He would spend the night sleeping in an art supply closet, waking up early to quietly make his way to the gallery where the Mona Lisa sat, waiting. After removing over 200 pounds of protective glass and ditching Lisa's frame next to some student artwork in a closet, Perugio would wrap up the painting in an apron and tuck it under his armpit, waiting at the train station that would whisk him away at around 7:45 in the morning. Which is just wild to think about, that this painting that's literally priceless is just under some like sweaty custodian's armpit inside of an apron. That's terrifying.
It is.
And just like that, a painting that had been known only by let's try that again. And just like that, a painting that... Some water. It's such a short story. It'll be fine. And just like that, a painting that had been known only by appreciative painters and academia would be printed on every newspaper in the world, with headlines like, quote, Da Vinci picture stolen in Paris, and 60 detectives now seek the stolen Mona Lisa. It had become an international scandal, and everyone was the culprit. Before the theft, Americans had been gaining controversy by buying up all of the fine art in Europe, so business magnates like J.P. Morgan, the founder of Chase Bank, were being accused of hiring goons to steal the painting. Even Pablo Picasso was falsely accused.
Jeez.
One of the detective's prime suspects, Guglielmo Apollinaire, which I totally butchered, was friends with Picasso and, in a panic, suggested to the cops that he might have done it. Picasso was interrogated and found innocent, which is funny since he did actually have a history of buying stolen art from the Louvre. There was an Iberian sculpture that his friend took from the Louvre and gave it to him as sort of a gift, and that would end up being an inspiration for one of his paintings, Demoiselles d'Avignon. So he did steal stuff from the Louvre, but he didn't steal the Mona Lisa.
Okay.
People were buying tickets to the Louvre hand over fist just to see the quote-unquote wall of shame, an empty spot where the Mona Lisa once sat, including Franz Kafka.
Kafka-esque.
Yes, Kafka saw this Mona Lisa, and he thought it was kind of ironic that people were buying tickets to see nothing.
That's funny.
As for Perugio, he had been quickly dismissed as a suspect early on in the case, and as the story goes, he would prop the Mona Lisa on a chair opposite to him at his dinner table whenever he ate, staring into her eyes, and then would tuck her away into the false bottom of one of his traveling cases.
Wow.
So he was still in Paris working for the Louvre at the time, and people would be like, where's the Mona Lisa? Where's the Mona Lisa? He'd come home, have dinner with the Mona Lisa, like as if she was, his wife or something like that, and then
weirdly
tuck it
creepy.
into a traveling case. Unfortunately for Perugio, the Mona Lisa was too hot for him to fence, so he would keep up this routine for 2 years until he managed to find a collector in Florence. Yeah.
It was gone for that long.
2 years. Literally 2 years. It was in the same town. Everybody assumed that someone stole it to resell it or something like that. Meanwhile, Perugio just wanted it. Obviously, I'm sure there was money involved, but just kept it in his apartment to look at until he could sell it.
That's crazy.
So he found a guy in Florence who was willing to buy it. The collector, named Mario Fratelli, would agree to pay Perugio. Let's try that again. The collector, Mario Fratelli, would agree to pay Perugio hand over fist and asked the painting be left with him for safekeeping for the night. But he was in cahoots with the police. Not even 30 minutes later, Vincenzo Perugio would be apprehended and brought to trial, but the story doesn't end there. While money was certainly a factor in Perugio's plan, he wrote a letter to his father saying, I'm going to bring so much glory to the family. I hope you'll be proud of me once I do this thing that I can't tell you about. It would also seem that he was an Italian patriot through and through. Having learned that Napoleon had stolen hundreds of paintings from Italy during the Napoleonic Wars, Perugio decided he would take it upon himself to bring back the art to his home country. Only problem was, if you listen to the last episode of Leonardo da Vinci, Leonardo lived in France when he was working on the Mona Lisa and intended to give it to King Francis I after he died as a final gift. It did eventually make it to him after Salai stole it and whatnot.
Okay, I don't know that we talked about that in that last episode.
In the last episode we talked how Salai
I knew that was Salai
shot with a crossbow, and they went inside of his house and they found a bunch of copies of
that. I remember. I don't remember you mentioning that he intended to give the Mona Lisa to Francis I, though.
Oh, I don't think we talked about whether or not it was intended as a gift.
Okay.
No.
Still cool, though. Fun fact.
Yeah, so he was like, Napoleon stole the Mona Lisa, and Da Vinci was like best friends with the King of France and was like, this Mona Lisa, I'm going to give it to you. But this guy didn't know that, so... Originally sentenced to years in prison, the jury believed Perugio had a good heart and just a bad knowledge of history. So instead, he only served 8 months in jail.
Oh.
Perugio spent the rest of his life as a painting frame maker and would serve in World War I and pass away at around 44 years old.
Oh, well,
so,
a little bit young, but still.
I mean, World War I,
mustard gas might have gotten to him.
Probably. I couldn't actually find a cause of death. It was actually really hard to find when he died because people typoed his name or something like that. So it would have made international news of like the famous art thief, dies at 44. But during the obituaries, nobody bothered to realize that the guy who died was the guy who stole the fucking Mona Lisa.
That's crazy.
So that's why the Mona Lisa is considered, or is really just like this cultural icon. It's a part of the cultural canon of the world. You think of fine art, the Mona Lisa is literally just shorthand for that. You could speak like, this is my Mona Lisa, and people will know exactly what you're talking about. And a big reason for this was because of Perugio, and Perugio stealing it and it being on every single newspaper on the planet until World War I happened.
It goes back to the whole idea of, well, what is the story behind the antique, right?
Yep.
If you ever watch Antiques Roadshow, you can have something that's amazing. You can have like a Rolex watch that's, 70 years old, and they can go, well, it's really valuable because it's a Rolex. But weirdly, if you watch enough of that show, you'll find that if anybody ever brings in like an Omega watch from the, I want to say it's like early 60s. This is a very specific one. And it was the one, it's called the Moon Watch, because it was the watch that was given to all the astronauts that went up to the moon and were a part of the space program. And they're exceptionally rare, and they're worth, 80, 90, $100,000+ at this point for one of these watches, if not more. And there's not a jewel to be found on them. And again, it goes back to the story. I also liken it to something like Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh.
Yep.
We always say Van Gogh in the United States, but apparently it's Van Gogh. Again, gorgeous painting. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. But one of the big reasons that we know it to be the painting that it is today was that it broke the record for the most valued painting ever sold when it was initially sold in like 37 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact year. By a country mile. It was sold for like $26 million or something in a time when paintings were going for a few $100,000.
Yeah.
And it made headlines. And now Starry Night has become what it is.
It's on your art teacher's
reason.
coffee mug, and
everywhere you go, you can't get away from it.
Mural of it in the
basically.
cafe.
Exactly. And it's because it has this story to go along with it. And it was on headlines all over the place with breaking records. Oh my gosh, why is this painting so valuable? Everybody just started talking about it. Feels similar to the Mona Lisa.
That's the same thing with the Mona Lisa. Artistic elites knew that the Mona Lisa was sort of the gateway to the future of painting. They saw the sfumato technique, like that would be really popular with Caravaggio, and the posing and the symbolism and Da Vinci's knowledge of the world. All of those things are true, but it just wasn't. It wasn't the most stopped at painting in the Louvre by far. So having it being stolen was almost its own PR campaign, and the fact that we actually managed to safely recover it as well is insane, because a lot of the times when paintings get that hot, the thief will just ditch it, throw it in a river, whatever.
Really?
Because it's if it hits news lines, it becomes impossible to sell.
Yeah.
So some of the best painting thieves in the world tend to steal paintings that are far less known to the general public.
Gotcha.
There was a guy who I can't remember exactly when it happened, but was famous for just with a screwdriver going to local art museums throughout Europe, not the Louvre, not any major museum dedicated to a country or something like that. And with just a screwdriver, he would just pick off any random painting on the wall. He ended up getting something like close to like $100 million worth of paintings, and managed to make exorbitant amounts of money on them. But then as soon as they became popular, I can't say whether or not he actually did it, but he did. I think he ended up ditching like a basket of paintings just into a river.
Jeez.
And that's happened multiple times.
It's very, very sad. At that point, it's just like, just leave it somewhere for somebody to find. Why deprive the world of these paintings,
Yeah.
But whatever, I'm not a
thinking about
mastermind.
the Mona Lisa in dollar value, in a world where capitalism and money is so... You can put a price on anything. It's very interesting to see that financial experts, actual experts, would say, I'm not sure if I could put a price on the Mona Lisa. That's how culturally significant it was. And then it was stolen. Like, that's wild.
That is great. It's like saying, can you put a value on the statue of David? You're like, not at this point. It's so iconic that it's... how would you even appraise that? I mean, it's whoever would pay the most for it, but that almost wouldn't even give it the true value of what it would actually be worth.
And I'm not, I have never been to France, but I've definitely seen the photos of American tourists literally just like clamoring over each other just to get a glimpse at this portrait. It's a hot ticket item for the Louvre. It's practically one of the only reasons why people go to see the Louvre when they go to Paris is to see the Mona Lisa. So it kind of makes sense. It's more of like the gift that keeps on giving. Why would you ever want to sell it when you could just make hand over fist selling tickets on it,
In a weird way, kind of with that knowledge in mind of being like, oh, Americans are clamoring into the Louvre to see the Mona Lisa. It almost in this weird sort of way goes back to this whole thing of Americans have always been obsessed with true crime.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
That it's like they love a juicy story that involves criminals.
Oh, 100%.
Which is why we still can't get over Al Capone. We're like, oh, I don't know. He wasn't that bad of a guy. I'm like, he was a pretty bad guy, everybody. But like,
I had an Al Capone phase as well when I read everything
every
about
American has.
Yeah.
And they'll like find all these excuses as to why, like, oh, but he actually did do some good stuff. And it's like, okay, well,
through murder.
If you really want to get to that point or whatever, it's like, Hitler did a lot for the infrastructure of Germany. Like, wait a second, guys. Hang on. Like, that's not the conversation you want to have.
Exactly. It's really interesting, man. It's also, like I said, cultural canon.
Yeah.
It's not just, I want to see the Mona Lisa because I know a lot about the Mona Lisa. It's, I want to see the Mona Lisa because it's in the mental dictionary of what a culture, thinks is important.
Totally.
So if I'm in Paris, I've got to see the Mona Lisa.
Yep.
Lots of people go in there and they don't know jack shit about Leonardo da Vinci. They don't know anything about his life, but they have to see the Mona Lisa. And it's just so interesting that it's become, it's beyond its quality as an art. It's beyond even the story of its heist that got it famous. It's just, like I said, cultural canon. It's in the dictionary of, here's a list of things that are important to our society.
It's like when you go to Italy and people have to go see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You're like,
I have no idea.
Do you though? Yeah, because it leans over and I can put the picture with my hands holding it up or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, whatever.
And that's become almost like a post-ironic thing because it has become a cultural item where, like, you see it in movies where they, like, make fun of the whole, every tourist going to see the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's very interesting.
It is. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Office Hours. A couple of little plugs to throw in there really quickly before we say goodbye for today. First and foremost, if anybody is liking the show so far and wants to give us some support, you can go check out our Patreon page, and that's just going to be patreon.com/thebiographers. You can find us on social media. It's going to be TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm not going to do Facebook. I think I've kind of almost definitely decided. Yeah. It feels like an echo chamber at this point, but who knows? Again, you guys can shout at me if you're like, no, you need to be on Facebook. Then I'll do it, but I just don't want to. Also, go check out Metalwork by Miola. It's Akiva's website for all of your kitchen knife needs and really any metalworking needs in general. I'm sure if there's something that you wanted to have done, he could also, if not do it himself, he can partner with somebody else in the shop.
Well, certainly. Like Gates Railings, if you're living in Colorado and you are looking for a custom forged, bespoke gate, railing, or sculpture for the house or something like that, I also do that just as much as I make knives at this point.
Oh, are you doing that a lot more with Otto these days?
Yeah. Otto and I are working on a garden archway where we forged trees that'll go like across the archway. It's really pretty.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, go check out Metalwork by Miola. I can't speak for the railings and all that good stuff, but all your chef's knife needs, you can put in the code biographers at checkout. You get 10% off your order there.
Absolutely, including commissions.
And there you go, including anything custom that you want to have made. And then lastly, like we've already plugged a couple times throughout this episode, any questions, comments, corrections, you can shoot us an email at thebiographerspodcast@gmail.com. Anything else?
I think that's it, man.
Cool. Then thanks again for everybody for listening. We will see you in the next episode as we start into our series on Franz Liszt, which I'm very excited about. I think you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be for all of our music lovers out there. I promise you, it's going to be some good stuff.
It'll be great.
So that'll do it, everybody. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
See ya!
You've been listening to The Biographers. For more information, please visit thebiographerspodcast.com.